Well, I'm going to chair this meeting here this evening. This is the first in a series of public meetings across South Thanet to allow you an opportunity to meet the candidates for your particular ward, and also to hear a little bit from some chap called Farage who is standing for this constituency. And he's here, he's at the back, we'll bring him on a little bit later on. It falls to me to do the air stewardess announcements as we go. If there is a fire alarm here this evening, there's no practice scheduled, so if there is a fire alarm, the exits are there and there. And please don't look for the strip lighting on the floor, it's probably what causes the fires. Yeah. So without more ado, I want to introduce you to UKIP's two candidates for the local council for Nethercourt Ward. And they are to my left here, Lynn, and to my right here, Sam. I'm going to ask them to say a little bit about themselves, share a little about who they are, why they want to stand for the council, and in particular why they want to stand for UKIP. So, ladies first. Lynn, if you'd like to tell us a little bit.
Hello everybody, I hope you can all hear me. Thank you very much for coming along this evening, and thank you Chris for the introduction. My name's Lynn, and I've lived in Thanet for the best part of 40 years, and I live just around the corner in Edith Road. I completed a diploma in shop management with W.H. Smith. I've worked for myself, and more recently was a project manager for a small local manufacturing company. My time is now split between looking after language students from the Churchill School of English and being Secretary of UKIP South Thanet. So, why do I want to become a councillor? Over many years, I've seen the gradual decline of the area and have experienced the frustration, along with others I'm sure, at the decisions, or in many cases the indecisions, of consecutive Thanet district councils. Any democratic body should act in the interests of the people who elected it. To this end, council proceedings should be conducted with transparency, honesty, and most importantly, for the benefit of the community it has been given the mandate to represent. I believe that we need a completely new and fresh start in order to bring about real change. Our area has so much potential, and I want to be involved in its long overdue regeneration. It should be a place that local residents can be proud of and that people will want to visit or relocate to. At the moment, we have no airport, we have a derelict ferry port with a potential plan to allow a business that may cause pollution to an area of natural interest and possibly blight our beautiful Royal Harbour. Plus, a stalled project at the former Pleasurama site. If I were to be elected to council to represent the people of this ward, I would want to help others to get past the front line of bureaucracy and get answers to their questions. I would want to put some common sense and decency back into the running of our local communities and be a voice for the people and their concerns, for Nethercourt, Ramsgate and Thanet as a whole. It's up to us, the people of Thanet, to effect a change by having the courage to stand up and say, we don't want this anymore, we want a different approach. So, let's vote for change. Let's vote for Nigel and UKIP on May the 7th, because Thanet matters. Thank you.
Sam Osmond.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
As Chris said, I'm Sam. I'm 25 years of age, and I'm originally from Gravesend, although I moved here when I was about 2 or 3. So I've spent the best part of my life in Thanet. I left school at 16 and went into the Air Force. I was subsequently made redundant from the Air Force in 2010 as part of the Strategic Defence Review. So I took myself off to university. I'm currently studying as an undergraduate conflict, peace and security, and I intend potentially to rejoin the armed forces at some stage in the near future. Before that, of course, I'm here today obviously representing UKIP as a candidate for the Nethercourt Ward, and I very much hope that I'll be endorsed by yourselves on May the 7th, alongside Lynn and Nigel, of course. And you know, why did I join UKIP? Well, I joined UKIP because I felt that this country is going in a direction which my grandfather, who fought in the Second World War, was appalled by. We by successive governments giving away our freedom and democracy to foreign institutions, and for my future I want to regain that. And I want to have a referendum and leave the European Union. That's why I joined UKIP 2 years ago, and that's why I'm standing here tonight.
Well,
secondly, Thanet matters to me. You know, I spent the best part of my life here, and I feel in the same way that the national government has let us down successively over the course of the last 40 years or so has Thanet District Council, which has been run by the Labour Party. Whether it's Manston Airport or Pleasurama, I feel that they've completely and utterly neglected the good people of Thanet, and I want to be a voice for ordinary, decent people, you know, within the Nethercourt ward, and obviously within Thanet, as you know, the wider area of Thanet as well. And so I ask you, and I really hope that I can gain your support, and let's get Nigel elected. Let's get some UKIP councillors elected, so we can run Thanet District Council. We can bring about real change within Thanet and within the country. Let's make history. Let's get Nigel elected, and let's get our country back. Thank you.
thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Sam. You wouldn't believe it, but both of them came in here this evening and said to me, oh, I've never done this before. I'm nervous. I'm uncomfortable. They were very good. Weren't they? Speak slowly and speak from the heart, and that's absolutely what they did, and that's absolutely what we need to hear. Okay? And the other parties in this area are a little uncomfortable with the thought that we won't have 56 people just like these two guys to stand up for you as the electorate and you as people across the island of Thanet in a way that hasn't been seen for very many years indeed. We've been working with Sam and Lynn and the other potential candidates over the last few weeks in order to create a manifesto, something locally that we can talk about and hang our hat on that will actually allow you to understand what's at the heart of our appeal, what's at the heart of what we actually want to do. And I suppose I want to summarise it in one word. I'd say the heart of our appeal is about restoring pride. Yeah. For a very long time, Thanet District Council and the politics of Thanet have been more of an embarrassment than anything else, and most of us know that. Week in, week out, we see strange appearances on the television, films and reports of people actually taking papers and being approached in the High Court or whatever. The reputation of Thanet District Council is a pretty appalling one right now, and I speak as a Thanet District Councillor. I have to tell you that last year I spent some time looking for a job, and on the 3 recruitment agencies I approached, 2 of them told me, take Thanet Council off your CV. And it don't come much more blunt than that, does it? So, when we talk about restoring pride, what are the sort of pointers that we're talking about? Pride first in our streets. I don't know about you, but I know what these guys tell me and the other people that we're working with tell us, that actually we're all fed up with seeing streets that aren't clean, streets that are covered in dog mess, waste collections that leave more mess behind them than was there when they arrived, and a complete and utter lack of enforcement of the basic principles of keeping our streets clean, tidy and clear. That's at the top of our agenda. That's the first thing you will see action on in the first 100 days if you put us in charge of Thanet District Council. Secondly, and again, long overdue, pride in our people. Yes, Britain is an island race. We're proud of being an island race. We're an island within an island, and we're still proud of what our people can do. But you wouldn't think so when you hear some of our elected representatives talk about the island and talk about who we are and what we do. We need to prioritise and encourage inward investment to attract employers to the area and create jobs. Because by having jobs that people can work their way out of difficulty, we're far more likely to be successful as an island than we will with the way we approach matters at the moment. Thirdly, pride in Thanet itself. The lack of a serious tourism infrastructure. Yes, we've had a number of supposed projects and approaches in recent years that actually told us they were going to do something about tourism. What they actually meant was they were going to talk about it. There's one thing that TDT does well, is create groups of people to talk about it, and by the time they've talked about it, life has moved on. We need work on our tourism infrastructure. When I go to other seaside towns, I see them far better prepared for welcoming tourists and giving a welcoming view for tourists than we seem to be down here. We have to change that and change it fast. And added to that, a bit more trust and transparency in the political process around us at the District Council. Every time I go out knocking on doors, and I'm sure it will happen to these guys as well, as soon as you mention the Thanet District Council, people actually, faces drop. Yeah, they're embarrassed to talk about it, and when they do want to talk about it, it's in language that I couldn't possibly use in front of a young lady like me, right? Pride in our opportunities. Far too often the opportunities we have, things like Lynn mentioned, like the port and Manston Airport, which I'm sure we'll hear more about tonight, we don't actually put ourselves in the right place to exploit those opportunities, to actually work with youth employment, to actually work effectively, create jobs from the creative industries rather than things that simply pull big images up and down the streets. Pride in our homes. I don't know about you, but when I drive around Thanet, there seems sometimes to me to be a distinct lack of A, decent housing, and B, pride that householders may have in what and how they present their house and their garden to the rest of the world. It's time we change that and make people feel that they wanted to be seen as living in decent homes, and doing that change to those homes and making them decent so that decent people behave decently within a decent environment. Our neighbourhoods as such need that as well. And talking about neighbourhoods, perhaps number 6, pride in our neighbourhoods, tackling antisocial behaviour. There's a funny phrase, isn't it? When I was young, antisocial behaviour didn't exist. It wasn't a phrase we used. Now it's a catch-all phrase for anything that most of us don't see the authorities deal with, right? Yes? We have the Margate Task Force working in a particular area of the island, bringing together all the agencies to work together, and it is having some success. If it's having some success, why aren't we seeing that approach to the rest of our neighbourhoods as well? Margate is not the only place on the Isle of Thanet, is it? No. So, a little insight into some of those areas that we may look at, some of those areas you want to see us take action on. If there's other areas that you think we should take an action on at the District Council level as well, we'll be here afterwards to hear your comments. We'll take your comments on board and we'll drill them into what it is that we want to do. Nice though it's been, I'm sure most of you didn't actually come here to listen to me.
I did.
You can have your £5 later, sir. So, I'm sure if we sold tickets in 100 plus tickets in 4 days, it wouldn't be to listen to me. So, here you are. You have a chance to ask questions, as we said before, after Nigel has spoken. But right now, I'd like you please to welcome the leader of the United Kingdom Independence Party, the candidate for South Wales, and the next MP for South
Wales. Well, thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. And welcome to a public meeting. Yay. And whether you come along tonight because you like me and like UKIP, whether you come along tonight because you're open-minded and want to hear more about what we're for and against, or whether you come along because you absolutely want to confirm the suspicion that you loathe me and the party and everything we stand for, I don't care. You're all welcome. And we are the only political party in Britain that has genuine, open, public meetings. I did ask David Cameron to come along tonight. Well, he's busy. He's busy. I was going to say washing his hair, but having watched him with Obama, I think perhaps dyeing his hair might be more appropriate. You have to admire Mr. Cameron. Anyone that can reverse the greying process must have some considerable talents. I'm not a typical politician in any way at all. And I say that because if you look at the front benches of the Conservative Party, the Labour Party, the Liberal Democrats, what you will see is the overwhelming majority of them have gone to the same handful of schools, have gone to Oxford, have studied PPE. Well, fine, so far I can live with it. Now comes the real problem. Nearly every single one of them, when they've left Oxford or Cambridge, goes to work as a researcher in a back office for a political party. They become members of Parliament, aged 28 or 29, cabinet ministers in their 40s, and we are being led increasingly by a political class of people who've never had a job, who've never suffered the ups and downs that ordinary folk do in life. They are completely detached from reality, and they are in politics not to serve this country and its people. They're in politics for a career, and they look the same, they sound the same, and they've given us a rotten deal for this country. Now, by contrast, my background is very different. I did pretty badly at school. I left at 18, and I went to work in London in the metal trading industry, buying and selling copper, aluminium, lead, zinc, tin and nickel. All the things that go into our cars and our fridges and our washing machines. So working with industry, not just British industry, but working with industries and businesses all over the world. And I would say, by my own admission, I wasn't bad at it, but I made a few bob doing it, although probably I enjoyed the high life rather more than I should have done. I've made all sorts of terrible mistakes in life. I've been divorced, I've had financial ups and financial downs. I survived a massive car crash. I had cancer as a young man, and I was even very lucky to walk out of a light airplane crash 5 years ago. I did for my last 9 years in business, run my own company with my own money in it, employing the men and women, myself, off my own back. I've taken risks, I've seen the ups and downs of life. I've come into politics not for a career. I'm actually far worse off in politics than I was running a business. I've come into politics because I just felt that something absolutely fundamental had gone wrong. 40 years ago, my mum and dad voted in a referendum, and they voted yes to Britain being part of what was called, do you remember? A common market. Now the youngsters here weren't born, but we need the history of this. My mum and dad voted for us to be in a common market. They voted for us to do more trade with Europe. They voted for us to cooperate with Europe. They voted for us to be good next door neighbours, which with the French was always ambitious, I know. but the point being, they voted for us to get on with our neighbours. And anyone living in a street knows, you want to get on with your neighbours rather than being at war with your neighbours. And I think Mum and Dad were right to vote yes to the common market as it was sold to them. As it was sold to them by 3 political parties who said, don't worry your little heads, this won't affect the ability of Britain to govern itself or control its borders. This will purely be about business and about trade. And by about 1990, when I was working, buying and selling metals and dealing in all sorts of different currencies, by about 1990, I'd realised that we still had 3 political parties, absolutely committed to something whose name had changed. It had become the European, not economic community, but the European community. And then in '92, it became the European Union. And my view, and it's a very straightforward and simple one, is that we in this country have one of the world's oldest functioning parliamentary democracies. It is our ability to hire and fire our rulers. It is our ability to get rid of people once every 4 or 5 years and to replace them with somebody else with a different manifesto. And that actually all of that has gone. Because now 75% of our laws are made somewhere else. And if we hadn't stamped our feet and protested, those political parties would have signed us up to the euro as well. So my view, folks, is simple. I believe that the best people to govern Britain are the British people themselves through the ballot box in this country, and not foreign bureaucrats or courts in Brussels, Luxembourg or anywhere else. All right? Please don't take that to think that I am anti-Europeans. I'm not. I love Europe. It's a great place to visit, to travel, to go on holiday. Goodness me, I'm even married to a European. No, I am. I'm married to a girl from Hamburg. So nobody needs to tell me about the dangers of living in a German-dominated Mrs. Merkel is fairly powerful. So it was that principle that got me involved in politics. And as I say, most of our laws are now made somewhere else. And bit by bit, the British people have woken up to what's happening to them. Here in Thanet, the first people to understand it were, of course, the fishermen, who suddenly realised that what had been our territorial waters were now considered to be a common European resource. And we now find the British fleet are allowed to catch only 18% of the fish in British territorial waters by value. Yeah. Only 18% of the fish in our territorial waters are caught by our fishermen. Is it any wonder there are so few commercial fishing boats in Ramsgate Harbour, and further up the coast, round the corner at Whitstable, there are none left at all? All right? So they were the first people to understand it. But bit by bit, anybody running a business began to understand that the massive rules and regulations, the massive red tape and bureaucracy that they had to follow, they began to ask themselves, where is this coming from? And of course the reality is, our own Westminster Parliament, whilst it has a very good piece of theatre every Wednesday called Prime Minister's Questions, actually this Parliament we've got now is debating less legislation than any Parliament in modern times. Because the real decisions are being made somewhere else. They're being made in the European institutions, and there's nothing we can do to change that law once it's made. But the real issue that I think has woken people up to what membership of this European club means is the fact that we now have an open border to 500 million people. Any one of those people can come into this country, and what we've seen, and let's be realistic, I know that anybody that dares to talk about the immigration issue has been at risk over the last 40 years, has been written off. You know, terms of abuse are thrown at anybody that wishes to discuss this. Just think of this, folks. From 1950, when we took a decision in Britain that we actually owed quite a big debt to those Commonwealth countries. You know, anyone that's been to northern France or Normandy and been around the battlefields will see, you know, Sikh and Hindu regiments and West Indians and Australians and Canadians and people from all over what had been the British Empire actually stood by this country. And part of our debt repayment was to let some people from those countries come and live here. We did it from 1950 until the year 2000. And you know, how many came? Well, I'll tell you, in 1983, the net immigration into Britain was 17,000 people. To just sort of get a handle on that, 17,000 people, about the size of, let's say, 2 big villages. Net immigration into Britain last year was 263,000. We are increasing our population by 1 million people every 4 years just due to immigration. Now look, I want to make it absolutely clear, we in this party have nothing against people from ethnic backgrounds, from different religions, from all over the world. In fact, there are lots of people whose families have come from all over the world who will be standing as local candidates for us and general election candidates for us all over the country on May the 7th. But we have, ladies and gentlemen, to have control over this issue. And it is irresponsible madness not to have control. I mean, the big debate of the last fortnight has been the National Health Service. The fact that accident and emergency can't cope Anybody got a clue why that might be? You know, might it be because in 1990 the population of Britain was 55 million and it's now over 64 million? And what about the pressure on housing? You know, with Thanet being told that it'll need to build 12,000 new houses. Quite where the jobs are going to come from for all these people at the moment in Thanet, I've simply no idea. But the pressure on housing, the pressure on hospitals, the pressure on schools. We are short of 250,000 primary school places in this country. It is ludicrous. But the other point, folks, is this. When people came here from Jamaica and elsewhere in the 1950s, they had to have a skill or a trade to bring to the country. They were qualified nurses. They were bus drivers. Whatever it was, they had something to bring to this country whereby from day one, and because they spoke the language as well, which is important, from day one they could contribute and become part of our community. We no longer have any checks whatsoever. And whilst I fully understand that most of the young men and women that come here from Southern and Eastern Europe are decent, hard-working people, amongst their number are those that are not decent, hard-working people. And we have an open door to literally anybody. Regardless whether they have a criminal record, there is nothing we can do to stop them. Now, I want to make this point. Immigration has become the #1 issue in British politics, and people are heartily sick of open border migration. But I am not, with this or with anything else in the campaign, going to give you negatives. I'm going to give you positives. Because the UKIP policy on immigration would be this. We think, well, what Britain should do is have an Australian-style point system where we can decide. The Aussies do it brilliantly. The Aussies say, if you want to come and live here and work here,